Brothers in Arms, Chapter 9. If Mazeka thought he had been rocked by all the differences between the world of Spherus Magna and the universe he was used to, he was in for an even bigger shock. Toa Maku returned with a guide to the fortress of the Great Beings. A tall, white-armored being she introduced as Makuta Pterodax. The newcomer greeted both Vultraz and Mazeka and suggested they get started right away, as it was a treacherous journey in the dark. "So, your title is Makuta?" asked Mazeka. "What do you do?" "Whatever is necessary," Pterodax replied. "My role is to aid the Toa in looking after the villagers, to create new life forms as needed, and to teach the virtues of unity, duty, and destiny to those I and my brothers bring into being." Vultraz thought he was going to be sick. What had they done to the Makuta here? Where was the delicious evil, the complex plans, the ruthless ambition? Or, if the Makuta's actions had been fueled by a hatred for/jealousy of Matanui, and there was no Matanui here, had things turned out differently? "Must be a tough job," said Vultraz. "It is time-consuming," said Pterodax. "A Makuta must be a being utterly without doubt, or fear, or any trace of shadow. So it takes long years of meditation before one is ready to assume the title. The powers that once ran this world were mad with a hunger for power. The great beings created the Makuta as an answer to that." No one spoke for the rest of the journey. Mazeka was filled with questions, but he wasn't sure it would be wise to ask them. If the Makuta found out where he and Vultraz were really from, he might decide to imprison them, or worse. After all, why would the beings of Spherus Magna want those of a universe as war-torn as Mazeka's to know about them or their dimension? It was a long and dangerous trip through thick forest and high mountains. Now and then, a great roar would shake the earth. The two Matoran didn't ask the source. Neither really wanted to know. And Pterodax did not offer. They came at last to a vast fortress made completely of crystal and iron. Two more Makuta guarded the main gate. Mazeka and Vultraz recognized them as Gorast and Icarax, also in white armor. They allowed the party to pass through unchallenged. The only uncertain moment was when Vultraz glanced at Gorast and muttered, "Like the outfit." Gorast's response was to lift him in the air telekinetically and then slam him down on the ground. It was her version of a gentle warning. The trip to the fortress had been a long one. The journey from the main gate to the central chamber took even longer. After the 100th twist and turn, Mazeka became convinced this was all on purpose. The Great Beings evidently did not welcome visitors, and didn't want those they did have to remember how to find them. Mazeka expected to be ushered into a vast laboratory. Instead, the room Pterodax brought them to looked more like a council chamber. A semicircular stone dais sat at the far end of the room. The only illumination came from light stones embedded high in the ceiling, and that was barely enough light to see one's hand in front of one's face. He thought he could dimly make out 6 figures seated at the dais, but then they were gone. Perhaps, like so many things, it had been a trick of shadows and light. A soft voice, no more than a whisper, broke the stillness. "Who have you brought to us, Makuta, and why?" "They say they came from another land, and seek to return there, said Pterodax. They look like Toa, but I believe looks are deceiving. And one has a spirit filled with shadow. Mazeka cursed under his breath. He had been an idiot! Makuta were telepathic. Order of Matanui training meant his mind was shielding, but Vultraz had no such protection against mental intrusion. Pterodax had read his mind and knew all now. Step forward, said another whisper. Mazeka was struck by how ancient the voice sounded. He took a step. Vultraz hesitated until Pterodax shoved him forward. There was an eternity of silence. Then more whispers came. Our work, but not our work. Interesting. And one filled with shadow? How intriguing. Was there a flaw in his creation, I wonder? Perhaps we should take him apart and see. No, too extreme. But there should be testing, I agree. Now, wait a minute, said Vultraz. I'm not volunteering to be a lab rahi. We simply wish to go home, said Mazeka. We have business to settle there. I ask that you let us leave. It is a lost opportunity, one of the great beings whispered. Perhaps not. An exchange can be made. What is your name, visitor? Mazeka. Mazeka, yes, came the response. We have many wondrous creations, Mazeka. Some even loyal Pterodax does not know about. Your visit is in truth fascinating, but not a surprise to us. We are well aware that we have counterparts elsewhere in the vast, uncounted realities that exist. It was only a matter of time before one of their creations pierced the dimensional walls. And considering the chaotic state of their creations, not an event we anticipated with glee. And so, we offer an exchange. You will be allowed to return from whence you came. We will keep your companion. I feel certain you have quite enough darkness in your universe, and do not need more. And we will be interested to see just where our other selves went wrong in his creation. In return, you will be allowed to bring one being from our universe back with you, to maintain the balance between the two realities. Mazeka wasn't sure what to say. He hated Vultraz, had for years. But he wanted to beat him fairly and see him brought to justice. Instead, this would mean stranding him in an alien reality and facing who knew what future. I'm sorry, Mazeka said. I cannot agree to your request. That would pain us greatly, the great being answered. If it had been a request. It was not. Kirox and Vampra appeared out of the darkness and seized Vultraz. Mazeka moved to stop them, only to find his way blocked by Pterodax. I have seen the rot in his spirit, the Makuta said. And much more. Things that shame me. I have peered into a distorted mirror. One I wish I could smash to bits. He will get no more and no less than he deserves. You don't understand, said Mazeka as Vultraz was dragged away. He's my responsibility. He is no one's responsibility but his own, said Pterodax. If you learn nothing else from your time here, learn that. Make your choice, said one of the great beings. It is time for you to go. Mazeka considered. Did he want to bring someone back with him? And if so, who? Maku? Kapura? A great being? Was there anyone who could help in the struggle going on back home. And then the answer came to him. He turned to Pterodax and said, "You." Pterodax nodded. "Through the mirror, then. And your chance to smash it," said Mazeka. "Then make ready," said the great being. "We do not envy you your journey or your destination, but it is a journey that must be made all the same, and a destination perhaps only you can save." The end.